What's going on, guys? It's Coolcrap567, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a gun overview of a gun that I've been working with for quite a while now. I've had a similar setup for quite a while now, but I kind of, put it on a dedicated gun because before I used to run a similar setup to this. It's just a upper, but now it's on a dedicated gun, and I'm eager to show you guys kind of what I've been doing with this and how this build came along. So in my opinion, this build is complete. What that means is that this build has its own dedicated optic, its own dedicated laser and IR system, its own flashlight, and things of that nature. I tend to call guns complete when I do have all those components. So I don't like to swap out different optics, different lasers on guns. I like to just keep them zeroed and not have them move around. So I'm really happy with the way this thing turned out. So we're going to go into depth about everything, about the gun, about the laser system, the optics, everything on that. So let's get started. So let's get into the gun itself. This is a Tokyo Marui recoil shock. It's not really too much to say about this. I didn't really do a whole lot of upgrades to the gun itself. I really pretty much just kept it stock. And, it's cool that you can get a MOSFET and everything, but just the way the prices for the BTC MOSFETs are going, I don't really see myself getting one of these. I don't feel like paying $300. So that's just one thing. I'm waiting for Titan to come out with their MOSFETs, or I think it's Gate, I forgot what it's called, but I had one of those in another build and it was pretty nice. So once they come out for the recoil shock MOSFETs, I'm going to be trying to get one of those, especially for this build, because I think the MOSFETs are pretty good. Again, I didn't really upgrade anything, no barrel setup. I think the only thing that was done to this gun was the connectors were changed, and that's about it, and I'm probably going to keep it that way. The trigger contacts haven't burned down on me, which is a common problem, so that's pretty good. This gun does tend to lock up if you shoot it quite fast, but I haven't really had that problem too much on this build as I had it on different other recoil shocks. So for the time being, this is pretty good, and I'm not going to have to really change anything out on this until something breaks, really. Alright, so I feel like the Sling system is going to be a vital part of any build. I tend to do the same mentality with the Sling setups. I tend to have a dedicated Sling for each gun. One I went for this build is the Vickers padded Blue Force Gear Sling. This is in multicam arid. I'm a big fan of multicam arid. It's padded. The pattern's kind of fading on this thing, I guess from just rubbing up on you a lot of use. It did have a sticker there, a Blue Force Gear sticker, but that actually just fell off. It's quick adjust, and it's actually fairly easy when it's on your body. You could just take your hand and just adjust it real quick, and that's pretty nice. When you get the Sling, it's not going to come with any QD clips, so I just had to install one right there, and then I installed a QD mount in the back. It's just the way I'm running this. I used to have two of these clips, and what's cool about these clips is you can turn this into a one-point Sling if you really wanted to. And then I had the swivel in the back, but just for now, this is just kind of how I'm running it. I feel like it's a little bit more comfortable running it like this. So we're going to work our way from the back and then go forward, and then I'm going to just be going over all the optics, all the attachments, and things of that nature. So going over here to the back, we have the PTS EPM stock. I'm a real big fan of the stock. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels. The battery storage on this thing is actually quite good. I've been able to fit most of the batteries that I have in my possession in this thing, sometimes even multiples of them. So it's pretty good for extended games, where you could just put two batteries in each tube and just swap them out if you tend to see maybe your lipo's going down. So that's pretty good. I'm a big fan of that stock just for that reason. Also in the back you can see a QD point, and that's pretty easy to manipulate. Just do like that, and it's pretty sturdy. I had some doubts, especially an airsoft company making the QD point, but this thing has actually held up pretty good. The only problem I'm having with this is the butt pad is kind of peeling off, but that's not too much of an issue. So going on to the lower receiver of the gun, not much has changed. I pretty much kept a lot of the stock furniture the same. The only thing I pretty much did was I added this Wilson Combat. This is made by FCC, licensed by Wilson Combat. This is going to be the extended bolt release, and just when you're putting in a mag, it's a little easier to hit than just the standard bolt release. And if some of you may know that the Tokyo Marui recoil shocks do have a bolt stop feature, so when the magazine's out of ammo, you're going to be able to put a new mag, hit that bolt release, and you're going to be good to go. Speaking about mags, I'm running the PTS EPM mags. I found that these mags speed really good. As long as you treat them right, as long as you empty out the rounds every time you're done with them, these things are going to be performing really good. The only negative thing I have to say about these mags is that they don't hold 150 rounds compared to the AEG mags, but I'm sure that they had a reason. So that's whatever. These mags can also go from 120 rounds to 30 rounds from hitting the switch, so that's pretty cool. If you're going to want to go for that more realistic setup, you can do that. Alright, so now we're going to go over the upper receiver, and the upper receiver has been pretty much completely redone. No more of the stock furniture besides the outer barrels even still in this thing. I'm really happy with the way this thing turned out. So let's start off with the giant behemoth of an optic up top, the Eotech Vudu. I love the way this thing adds to the look of the build. I really think it completes it. I'm not really too happy with the performance of the Eotech Vudu, and I'll get into that in a second. So, the Eotech Vudu is sitting on an American Defense mount, 2-inch mount right there. It has QD clips, so you can just take it out if something happens, or you just want to take it off pretty easy. I'm a big fan of American Defense mount. Pretty much any optic that I've owned that requires a mount, that's basically everything that's not a Eotech. I've basically went with the American Defense mount, and that's kind of ironic because the Vudu is an Eotech, but you get what I'm saying. So let's get into the sight itself. Now, when I first heard about the Vudu, I was kind of curious. I wanted to know how this thing was. It was advertised as a true 1X, but that's just not the case, and it kind of hurts me because a lot of people that do reviews on this thing do not say it's a 1X. I mean, they say it's a 1X when it's really not. And that kind of pisses me off because, I have one of these things in my hand. I can kind of tell. I've had people that, used other sites, that tried other sites, that looked through other sites, and they keep telling me, yeah, this isn't a 1X. So, I thought this was going to kind of be an Eotech on 1X. Then you can, flip it over, which it honestly flips over fairly nice. It's a real nice motion. It's fairly easy to do. So I thought it was going to be, an Eotech at 1X, and you could zoom that out to 6X, and that was going to be a lot better. And, especially for airsoft, you don't need, 6X, but it kind of does help you. You can kind of see where your BB's going and make a little bit better course corrections, kind of know, all right, did they call it? No. Is the BB hitting them? Stuff of that nature. So that's why I kind of wanted to try the Eotech Vudu. And, I'm happy I tried it, just so I could kind of get that experience, but I'm not happy with this thing's performance. So, again, that's not too much of a big deal. At least for me, I have this problem where, if the optic is a little bit magnified, I tend to, kind of get off target a lot for some reason. So that does, I've had that similar problem even with the Eotech G3 magnifier, G33 magnifier. But, some other people don't complain about that. I have friends that use magnified optics and they can, use them with both eyes open. I guess it's just the way that, my eyes are. I really can't use this effectively as I would like to. It's still a beautiful optic. I'm really happy with it, but that kind of using this thing for CQB is just, which pretty much what I was going to do with it, is just not going to happen. And you might be thinking, well, why would you get a 1:6 magnified optic for CQB? Exactly why, because it's a 1:6. So that's just one thing. I really wish this thing would have actually been a true 1X like it advertised, but it's just not. And I tried it out, and I had to pay the price for it. But whatever, that's not too much of an issue. I still like this thing. It's probably going to be on this build for a while. I'm really happy just with the way it looks, but that kind of sucks, but whatever. Going further into the upper receiver, here we have a rear M-Bus Pro. I would like to flip it up for you guys to show you guys, but the optic is in the way. So if I ever have to use these, I'm probably going to have to, take this optic off, put it in a backpack or something, and then just flip these iron sights up. Something I could have done to get around that was to get the canted Magpul M-Bus sights, and I honestly thought about it, but, if you ever have to use 90-degree, offset iron sights, your shots are going to be completely off. Like anything more than like 10 feet, they're going to be completely off. So I wouldn't really recommend getting anything of that nature. They look cool, but honestly, it's not going to really work, so there's no point. But in my opinion, iron sights are kind of pointless. They look cool, but if you're going to have to really, at least not for me, because I've tried to use iron sights and I just can't. I'm more used to an optic. So as we continue our adventure to the front end of this gun, I decided to go with the BCM KMR rail. I really like the way this thing looks. I'm not going to lie, also the price was kind of a deciding factor. At $180 for a real rail system that, you can put on an AR and it's going to have no problem. And, especially since this is just going to be on an airsoft gun, just to put that much money and get a real rail system, it's kind of nice, especially considering, You can get like a real rail system, like a Daniel Defense rail system for like $500 now, something crazy. So it was kind of nice to just spend that money and get a rail system. Everything was included, including a wrench to tie down the delta ring. So I have that installed. Now, one thing that I did have to worry about was that the BCM rails aren't really meant for the Tokyo Marui recoil shock, so it was kind of a pain. And the threads on the upper receiver basically had to be rethreaded as much as possible. As you can see that there's a noticeable gap right there. It's fine. The outer barrel is strong. It's not going to really move anywhere with these rails. So the way it is right now is fine. I'm probably going to leave it like that for a while. I'm not going to really change out these rails anytime soon. And that's going to be it for the rail system. I pretty much decked out the rail system, and what I like to do with the rail system, especially the key mod rails, are that I like to have everything direct mounted. I don't like to put a Picatinny rail panel and then an attachment. I'm just not a big fan of that. That's like a huge pet peeve of mine. So if I could do everything to the rail system direct mounted, that's the way I'm going to go. That's how I'm going to do it. So just to touch up a little bit on the key mod rail covers. When I originally bought this, I bought 2 packs of key mod covers thinking that was going to be enough to cover the entire rail system. I was wrong. I needed, I think, 4 to cover everything up. Now, I covered everything up, and I cut out little individual sections for the little bits over here. And around certain attachments, I had to just cut out a little bit more just to cover up all the key mod holes. Now, I don't really see too much of a benefit, especially for airsoft. I mean, I guess maybe, if this was on a real rifle, you probably wouldn't want to cover those up to, let heat vent out a little bit better. But these do have little individual sections to vent out heat. But maybe if the gun got too hot, you would want those instead of, just touching the hot metal rail. But I don't really see too much of a benefit. But in all honesty, I just like the look. That's why I went with these. So going over to the back and working away from the front, here we have a Vism stock swivel. I believe Magpul makes something similar to this, but I couldn't find the Magpul one when I went looking for it. So the Vism one will do just fine. And this has actually been screwed on a few months ago, and it actually hasn't even needed to be tightened. And this thing is holding up, being carried by the Sling. So this thing is good to go. I definitely recommend Vism. The BCM rails actually came with like a QD stock swivel, but I'm not really too crazy on that, especially because the QD would tend to rattle, especially on the middle rails. So I went in ahead and did this. This is just more of a permanent fixture to the rails, as opposed to taking the QD on and off. Going over here to the hand stop, this is going to be the BCM hand stop. Again, this is going to be direct mounted to the rails. I'm a big fan of direct mounting everything. I like to I don't like to put a Picatinny rail section and then a grip or a flashlight. I like to have everything direct mounted, so that's definitely what I was trying to do, especially with this build, and it shows with the different attachments that I have on this setup. So the BCM hand stop is going to just, it's really comfortable. Some people don't like it. I've had some complaints, especially when I've lent this rifle out, but a lot of people don't like the hand stop, but I don't have a problem with it, and this is just the way I like to run it. Okay, so now we're going to get into the trifecta that you see right here. That's going to include the laser, the light, and the pressure switch, because they're all kind of connected, at least the way I do it. So I tend to run dual switch, a PEC box, and light. That's just the way I've been doing it. That's also going more into the complete rifle setup mentality that I like to do. Now, going over to the pressure switch, this is going to be the TMVC taps. Now, this isn't the pro version, and it wasn't really an issue about money, spending the extra $100 to get the Taps Pro, but I honestly didn't really see a use for it. Now, the programming seems cool, but I'm not too crazy on the programming. At least, I don't really need it, at least with this setup. So, some setups you might need to. I could see maybe, you have just a dedicated IR laser, and then maybe you put an IR cover over your light, and that's how you could activate them both. But, I didn't really need it with that setup. Now, this activates my flashlight right here, and then this is going to activate my laser system. Here, so you can see that. So it's fairly easy to manipulate. It's a pretty nice click. It's not that hard. And this is going to actually be marked. There's going to be 2 marks right here that you can feel. You know, even with gloves, you're going to be able to feel that. So you're going to know which one is going to be your light system and which one's going to be your IR system. Now this is going to take one Surefire plug and one Insight plug, so you can kind of mix and match it. You're not going to be able to put, you know, a Insight M3 and a PEC box of sorts. You're going to kind of be stuck with the Surefire Insight plug setup, because that is just the most common. That's what pretty much a lot of setups are doing. Now for wire management, because I have the hand stop and that's going to get in the way if I put it underneath, I kind of have to like route it a little bit weird. You kind of see it's a little bit braided. I have to be wary that these wires don't interfere with the optics, so that's how the way I have it set up right now. You can see this is going to the Dbal, and then this is going to the light on the other side. We'll get into that in a second. But again, this is direct mounted. What's cool about the taps is that you can mount it either to M-Lock, key mod, or a Picatinny rail with an adapter that's included. But I'm just a real big fan because this was the only pressure switch, to my knowledge, without cutting the pressure switch, without you know, completely fucking it up, that you can direct mount it to the rails. That's why I was a really big fan, and that's why I knew that I had to get it for this build. So now we're gonna get into probably the most expensive attachment on this build. This thing comes in at almost 3 times the price of the gun itself, but in my opinion, it's worth every penny. This is gonna be the Dbal A3. This is a replacement to the Dbal I2 that I had that was stolen. This is gonna be in black, as you can tell. Now, I'm really impressed by the Dbal A3. Probably the closest thing I can compare it with would be the Adipult C, which I owned, and I'm just not too crazy about it. Now, compared to the Adipult C, this thing's going to have a green laser. Hopefully you guys can see that right there. And, you know, it's going to be the same power as the red laser on the Adipult C, but just because the nature of a green laser, your eye's going to be able to pick it up more, and that's going to be a lot brighter to your eye. That being said, the Adipult C's red laser seemed really weak, and there's been times where I was able to, laze targets in daytime. I was able to tell my team, all right, look, there's people here, take a look, and this thing really pops out. So I'm really impressed by just Steiner's green lasers in general. This thing's gonna have its IR laser slaved with your green laser, so once you once you sight in the green laser, it's going to be good to go for the IR laser. And this thing is also going to feature a IR illuminator that's adjustable. Now, the Adipult C had an IR illuminator that was not adjustable. And, just because it wasn't adjustable, it seemed really dull, which it was still, decently bright for what it was, but just the fact that you couldn't really adjust it kind of negatively impacted it. And I understand why they had to kind of make it non-adjustable, but in my opinion, it was almost useless because of that factor. So I'd highly recommend the Dbal A3 if you can stand the look of the Dbal, which I understand that Dbal is not going to look that good on a lot of builds, and a lot of people don't really like the Dbal. Like me personally, I even prefer the look of the PEC 15 over the Dbal. But if you're gonna have a build that you can kind of run the Dbal A3, or if you're not even that picky, like me, definitely recommend the Dbal A3. That's hooked up to an Insight plug in the back, and that's going to be connected to the TMVC taps right there. Now, going over to the light system, this is again going to be hooked up to the TMVC taps on the other side. That's going to be hooked up as well to the Dbal, so this all kind of fits together fairly nice. Here we have the Surefire Mini Scout right there. Now, the Surefire Mini Scout is, I think, about 250 lumens. This isn't the newer, brighter model. I wish I would have picked one of those up instead of this, but this honestly gets the job done fairly well. That's going to be mounted to a Noveski key mod mount right there. Now, the only negative thing I have about the Surefire is that the glass did get shot out in the front. That's not really too much of an issue since the light still works, no problem. But it's kind of unfortunate that it did happen. But I could just Lexan over it. It's not going to be too much of an issue. And that's going to allow me to keep this gun in a nice compact package, especially considering when I have my hand here, I kind of have like a nice rest to put my finger, to put my thumb, that you can kind of see. So now we're going over to the last two attachments on this gun. That being said, let's get into the backup iron sight in the front. This is going to be a Magpul M-Bus Pro right there. And as you can see, that I do tend to run this in reverse. Not a lot of people I've seen have done this with the M-Bus Pro. I know a lot of people do these with the CAC sights, but the way I run the M-Bus Pros are going to be in reverse right there. And that's going to give me two benefits. First of all, I'm going to be able to use less rail space, and that's going to allow me to put the Dbal as far forward as possible as I can do that, while still effectively being able to use the iron sights. And then the second benefit is I can open this up fairly easy, not with too much effort, especially when you're holding the gun. It doesn't require a lot of effort, and I could just close them fairly easy. Now, you know, these have a little bit of mud on them. It's not paint, because I did drop this rifle in the mud, but despite that, you know, these things are still good to go. I don't have to worry about them losing zero when I do zero these things. So that's a really good benefit. I'm a big fan of the M-Bus Pros. I've had these, I think, since they first came out. I remember when they got announced, and I tried really hard to get a pair of these. Now you can get these, I think, for like, I think it's like 70 or 60, but in my opinion, probably the best iron sights out there. Besides, like, I know a lot of people swear by the CAC sights, but those things kind of tend to be a little harder to get. Now there's a lot more in the market than there used to be, but in my opinion, these are probably the best iron sights that you can get readily available right now. Now, going over to the last piece, here we have a replica Surefire 3-prong flash hider. This was made by PTS. These actually came with their PTS mini foam suppressors a long time ago. I've actually had this thing, I think, for like almost 5 years now or something of that nature. It's been pretty long. I'm a really big fan of these. I think PTS makes one of these now in like this black color, where it's like jet black, and it's not the original. I could definitely tell, because this one has more of a grayish look to it. So I'm pretty happy to have like one of these original. Now, I guess the only negative thing I could honestly think about this is that, you know, if you bang this into a wall, it's gonna make like a little noise for a few seconds. Which let me see if I have something to show it. We're gonna tap a mag with it. And that's really the only negative thing I could think about. Besides that, there's not really too much I can say on the flash hider. I definitely like the way this thing adds to the look. You know, a muzzle brake would have looked really nice on this build too, but you know, I think this just fits it well, and so I'll probably just keep it. So, if you somehow made it through this entire video of me rambling, I would really appreciate if you guys let me know what's the next gear video you guys want to see. That could be either the other recoil shock, the 416C that I'm working on. I don't want to exactly do a video on that yet, but that will be coming out eventually. I'm still working on getting a couple more accessories for that rifle, but you know, if you guys want to see either a helmet video with my nods included, I could do an overview over that, or a plate carrier overview, or a belt overview. So if you guys made it through this, definitely let me know down below in the comments what you guys want to see next, and I'll start working on it. I'm really happy with the way this build came out. I'm in love with this build. I love the way it looks. You know, aside from some kinks on the build itself, I'm a big fan of the way this thing performs, of the way it handles. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this is giving you guys some ideas on what I've run. Maybe give you guys a couple ideas on what you can run. Any questions or comments, leave them down below, and thank you so much for watching.